Hello and welcome to Gaming Reviews. I'm honored to present to you Growl for the PC. And you wanna know why? Because it's a freakingly well done mobile port. Definitely one of the best I've ever seen. I'm going to explain later in the review as of why this is, but right now let me just start by explaining a little bit about the story and background around Growl and how the gameplay works. Growl is an action and adventure-like type of game that allows you to control a crow that flies over landscapes in search of story points and trinkets. These can be collected in order to level up in certain skills as well as progress further into the game. As soon as you're going to be dropped into the beginning level, it might not seem obvious what to do at first. But basically, the story revolves around a dark, faceless being that wants you to curse a number of supernatural forces which are seemingly disturbing this unknown entity. That's where you come in to discover story points to understand as of why this dark being wants you to do so. Then, if you explore even further, you'll eventually come across a wide, forgiving being that urges you to learn forgiveness and peace and actually spare the supernaturals instead. During the exploring, there are no time limits, so you can scavenge for story points and trinkets at your leisure. You can also enable a bird's view that allows you to look over the entire map. Click a point anywhere and instantly fly to that location. You might even come across optional challenges which allow you to collect even more trinkets to increase your skills as early as possible in the game before facing any of the supernatural enemies, which is quite essential, especially for later in the more difficult levels. Boss battles mainly consist of fighting the allies of the boss before meeting up with him, while flying along a fixed path, which again allows you to collect even more trinkets and increase your general score. You can fight by pressing the spacebar, which opens up a temporary screen that slows down the action shortly, so you can decide to either attack the enemy or instead create a shield that will protect you from a single incoming attack at a time. Your health and energy are displayed at the bottom left of the screen, and both work harmoniously together, as when you're hurt during a battle, you will only be able to gain energy again when your health is fully regenerated. This makes it more challenging, more interesting, and forces you to really look out for any single attacks if you want to eliminate everyone as quickly as possible.
I will crush your bones and bury you in the earth.
Once you defeat any of the level bosses, you're given the choice to either curse him or spare him, which come in favor of either the dark or the white being. Now, that is Growl in a nutshell, and for the sake of surprise and not wanting to spoil everything, that is all you need to know about the game. But does all of this justify this so-called greatness of Growl? Absolutely! And I will go even further by explaining why Growl, which was developed by Sunside Incorporated, is so amazing. It's important to realize that it was first released as a mobile product on the iPad, which solely relied onto the sweeping of your fingers to control the movements of the Growl. Now, Generally speaking, when we hear about ports, no matter if it is from a console or a mobile phone, everyone starts to go crazy because it will probably be badly ported and poorly optimized. Not for this game. Sunside did an amazing job for the performance of the controls, the graphics and the soundtracks. Flying over landscapes or dodging incoming enemy attacks all feel natural and very comfortable. There is a slight delay between going somewhere with your cursor and the Growl, but that is because it really has a fixed speed limit, so that it isn't a one-on-one ratio, which admittedly would be incredibly overpowered if that had been the case. The graphics and art design are splendid. I actually can't imagine it to look this good on the iPad, but judging from mobile reviews it probably is. The textures are detailed. The colors are melting together and feel excellently natural. The models are great and all do low polygon. It really doesn't hurt the overall picture. Hell, I even saw games being released earlier this year that look worse than Growl. The greatest touch of the visuals is the cohesion between the bump maps and the lighting of the game, which can clearly be observed in the best looking level of the game, which is the castle. Doesn't end here. The soundtrack is incredible. The music when flying around or during boss battles all have extremely recognizable themes and are a great extension of the actions and the movements on the scene. Just like the graphics, these soundtracks are actually better than some other games again, released earlier this year. On top of that, for the PC release, they remastered the audio so the quality is top of the bill. However, if there is anything that Growl manages to do flawlessly, it would be the build-up of its story and the significance of your choices, especially towards the epilogue of the game. I cannot stress enough how important this is. A game might have pretty graphics and a good soundtrack, but that doesn't make it enjoyable yet. Well, Growl delivers a simple but yet satisfying story that is surprisingly enjoyable, especially with all of those other great aspects. I'm not gonna give any spoilers, but you better think twice before making any decisions, because they really mean business at the final levels. It all doesn't come without errors though, as there are a few in Growl that might make you scratch your head, but it's really nothing near unbearable. The AI, for example, in the game, almost all rely on single attacks that are rather quickly memorized when you get used to their repetitive patterns. But yet, it all depends on which spot you are on screen and if multiple attacks are incoming at the same time. Which means that you shouldn't always underestimate a single incoming attack, as there might be another one coming from a different angle that you can hardly see. Another small problem appears when collecting trinkets. Per level and section in a level, you can collect a specific number of trinkets. And often I flew around the same spot many times without seeing any of them. While when returning afterwards, like 5 minutes later, it would suddenly reveal some anyway, which leads me to think that certain trinkets apparently can only be seen or unlocked from a specific point of view, which is stupid, because a bird flying that high should see any of these trinkets from any direction on the map. Perhaps one of the most frustrating decisions in the design of this game are the checkpoints. Especially near the final level, you'll often want to turn away from the screen and never come back. You'll understand what I mean once you get there. The full last annoyance of Growl is that certain paths flown during battle contain sequences that are extremely long with nothing going on whatsoever, making the time between resting and battle much too long. is one fatal crush-like bug in Growl that might appear when your Growl is just flying and he keeps on flying and none of the AI are interacting or attacking you, and you can do anything. You can't open the attacking screen with spacebar, you can't open the rows, and then finally pressing on escape would lead you to a black screen which forces you to quit Growl with Task Manager. Now, the length of Growl was something I foresaw to be shorter than a PC release, and indeed, at most a full gameplay with all retries included and lots of exploring here and there will keep you entertained at maximum around 2 hours of gameplay. Now, that understandably comes along with its cheap price, and to make up for that, Sunsight decided to allow you to replay the challenge levels after the end of the story. But unfortunately for post-end content, that's just where it ends. And I really don't expect a lot of people to spend much time in these challenge levels after all. Regardless, all of this beauty and the compelling story earns Growl a whopping 9 out of 10, which it deserved mainly for being one of the best mobile ports, having one of the most interesting storylines, and having splendid art and sound design that will keep you into the gaze of this heroic bird from start till end. It's a great example of a product on which a company did not give up just because it needed to be on a different platform. Sunsight didn't turn the same way as so many companies are going. By which I mean that most console or mobile ports are just a copy-paste of the mobile or console variant on the computer, which in turn gets experienced in-game and ends up being a freaking nightmare. It just gets all of the basics of a great game right. And it doesn't matter if it's shorter than most games, because I'd rather have a short but excellent experience than a long, tiresome experience with nothing memorable by a long shot. This level of quality in a port, from console or mobile, is what I want to see from now on, always in the future. Everyone who wants to know how it feels like being a bird and meeting great adventure and fighting thrilling boss fights should open up Steam and buy it now. My name is Joris and I'll see you in the next review. Hello, and flying over landscapes or dodging incoming enemy attacks. Flying over landscapes or dodging incoming enemy attacks. It's actually not even, that's not even a negative point, but it's quite boring that you can repeat. Can you see the repetitive music? My first big fan. Caramel. Hey. Allee, kijk een keer. Look at the camera, please. Come on. Oh, thank you so much. This is really she's my biggest supporter. My biggest supporter in everything I do. She's really my favorite. But she doesn't really like looking into the camera, does she?